During the Holiday Chaos episode of filming that, which was in Christmas of 2011, season 2 had already been filmed and it was in the can and it was being edited and it was being aired. And we had a lot of fun filming Holiday Chaos, and I remember asking the guys, I'm like, hey, what do you think about coming back for a third season if I decide to do a third season? Like, maybe we could do it in this new house that I'm living in. And they said, yeah, absolutely. So season 2 wraps up and it finishes airing on April 8th, 2012. And in the summer of 2012, we started shooting season 3. This went on for a full year. It went on for a full year. We started shooting season 3 in, I want to say it was maybe June of 2012. And we kept filming it all the way up until June of 2013. And it was a nightmare. It was an absolute nightmare. And within that time, within a year's time, not only were we filming season 3, but we were also filming what would end up becoming season 4. Julianne had already been a fan of the show during the second season. Like, I remember whenever we would air a new episode, she would always comment on it on Facebook, and she liked the show. And I remember talking to Dan and Mike about her, and they were talking to me about her because they knew her and I didn't. And they said, oh, hey, why don't you put her in the show? And I thought, well, we could use a new character. Yeah, why not? And we brought her on the show, and she was a really nice, she was so funny a lot of the time. Like, anytime she would have a scene with Dan. Now again, most of the time she wasn't on the set when Dan was there, so it was, a lot of their scenes were edited in together, so it looked like they were both on the set at the same time. But anytime she had a scene with Dan, it was always funny. Always funny. And the way Mike would react to it, or if I would react to it, but especially Mike, it was just funny every single time. Filming Heavy Duty was like this. None of our schedules were the same. Everybody had different times, everybody had their own thing going, and it was getting more and more complicated to make episodes. We were never, ever, at any moment on the set at the same time, the 5 of us. Dan, Mike, Julianne, myself, and Elena. We were never on the set at the same time. I watched some of these episodes now, and I'm like, it looks like we're all on the set on the same day. It's incredible that we weren't. We never were. So when I would write a Heavy Duty episode, because season 3 is when I started writing scripts, because I thought this would be 10 times easier, like whenever the guys will come over, we'll get lines from this episode and from that episode and from that episode. We would shoot like 3 or 4 different episodes a day, because they could only come over for like maybe an hour or 2, and I didn't know the next time they were going to be able to come back over, because some of us were in college, some of us were in high school, some of us didn't know when we were going to come back to the house, and we had to shoot different scenes from different episodes on different days. So continuity, change outfits, change wardrobe, change props, change, sceneries around, and it was crazy. It was absolutely crazy, because I was the editor, so all this stuff had to be in the back of my head. And not only that, I was writing a lot of the scripts, and Dan was coming up with a couple ideas for some scripts, and Mike was coming up with ideas, and we thought about making a Heavy Duty movie at this time, but we weren't sure how season 3 was going to go, and we weren't really a big show at the time. We never got paid doing the show. We never really got anything out of the show, really, except for, like, I remember Dan and Mike told me that they showed some of these episodes to some of their friends in college, and 90% of the time the feedback that we got from people was not positive, but not negative either. It was like somewhere in the middle, which was good. That was a good thing. But we never really got anybody that like really, really, really hated the show. And you can hate the show. It's okay. I don't care if you hate, because there are some things in that show that I wish I could go back and redo. There's a lot of things in that show I wish I could. But when we got to season 3 originally, I think the episode count was going to be like 15 episodes. We ended up doing 10, because the Tudor episode killed us. We must have shot that episode like 3 or 4 times, because the script wasn't working out. I didn't like the way it was going, and if there was ever a change, we had to change it. And Mike had a different shirt on one time, and I remember we said, oh, we got to reshoot all his scenes all over again because it's not going to match with continuity. He's wearing the wrong shirt, but he's here, so we got to get filming done, and this is the only script that I have. I don't have any other scripts done. So, yeah, it was a nightmare. And it was like this for every single episode. The ones when Toby and Andrew try to pull a fast one on Elena and they always end up failing. Those were some of my favorite episodes. Because working with Mike was so much fun. And working with Dan and Julianne was fun too. And Elena. Of all the Christmas specials that we did, because we did one almost every season, my favorite one had to be The Christmas Tale. Because I got Matt Hoover from our high school graduating class to narrate it. The reason why he's not in part 2, he's only in part 2 on a tape recorder, is because when he came over to shoot part 1, part 2 wasn't written yet. I was still writing it, and I didn't know if I was going to change it, so I couldn't really shoot his scenes for part 2. But when it came time for part 2 to go on the air, he couldn't come over to finish filming it, and it had to get out before the holiday season was over, so I had to do it audio, and that's why he's on a tape recorder in part 2. So that's why that happened. I was not a fan of the Twilight movies. I've made that very clear, and I just said, you know what, screw it. I'm just going to do an episode mocking Twilight, and yeah, that's the result of that. We did an episode on here called The Theater, and there was a lot of preparation for that one. That was the one where we're all trying to get to a Broadway show, and we're having trouble, we're waiting on Dan. Dan came up with something that I thought was really funny, and this was not in the script. When he comes in the room and he says, oh, I hitchhiked, and he does that thing with his knee, we were on the floor howling when he did that, or at least I was. And I said, okay, that has to stay in. I didn't write that, he did that, and I'm like, we gotta leave that in, because that worked. That was so funny, and I just had to leave that in.